Are predators. The more of those places that we can remove on these sites, not only put the lizards a bit more out in the open where we can catch them and move them, but take away places where they could hibernate and overwinter and continue to be successful here.
But that wasn't the only place they were spotted. Researchers found more in the leaf litter along the fence.
When we do catch them, we put them in socks. Like they have air, they don't die. And it's just more comfortable for them so they're not suffocating or anything or squished.
I told you it was good. Teamwork makes the dream work.
That was a good plan.
That was a good plan.
But it was interesting. He knew where his hole was.
He knew exactly where he was going.
Yeah.
Oh, that one's pretty too.
It's another male. Like, they got like little checkers almost.
Yeah, they got a nice design.
Don't they? I know. They're really pretty.
It's really alive.
Yeah, he's really alive.
Can I hold it?
No, I don't want to let go of him. But
jump.
put your finger out and watch. And watch. You can get to feel his claws here. Watch. Feel the claws on his toes. Can you feel that?
My bad.
You can just see a heartbeat inside there. There it is. See the little heartbeat?
Yeah.
Thump, 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 thump. Yep. One of the approved methods
Why is
for.
breathing different when it's on his back?
Oh, I think he's stressed. He's probably very stressed out. So he's breathing. Do you want to see him?
I got a long time. Why I don't be seeing these lizards?
No, I'm not gonna let you hold him. I'll do this, and you can feel his feet grab onto you. I'm gonna hold on to him.
Okay.
Did he jump?
Yes. They jump and they run. All right. Cool. Well, it's been great to have the students involved. It's always fun for them to get to see what's living around them and also expose them to research. Not many high school students get to see that kind of work, so it's been a lot of fun. Right there. Oh.
It's a nice spot.
Oh yeah, he's pretty. And so, will they bite?
We'll find out.
Nope.
No?
No, it's freaking out.
Oh, you can really see the blues down there. See him on his belly?
Oh, right there. Jesse,
Right there.
Ooh, right there.
Got him.
All right. That was a big one, wasn't it?
No, this is a small one.
Good morning, all. I want to call to order the meeting of the Governance Policy and Advocacy Committee for November 15th, 2023. And first have a roll call.
Yes, sir. Chair Brown.
Here.
Vice Chair Cole. Dr. Pierce. Dr. Pierce, are you there? I'm going to mark her for present because I see her up there for now.
Present online.
Yes. Joellen Klein.
Present.
Francis Beasley. Kelsey Ellingson. Here. Javante McDonald. Chair Brown, we do not have a quorum.
All right. Well, let's proceed anyway, and we should be able to make some progress. The minutes can also note the presence of Phil Hayes.
Yes, sir.
We're not going to be able to do anything with item 2, approval of minutes. I just see that we haven't approved minutes for quite some time.
Yes, we've been having trouble getting a quorum.
Mm-hmm. We've got large number of policies in front of us. It's a package. And we could have one of you present this to us.
So, has everybody here met Antoine Booker? Okay. Antoine's new to our staff in the Office of General Counsel. He is our compliance manager. So he is our expert essentially in pretty much all of these policies. And he has done the heavy lifting on the changes. As you recall, when we brought Title IX a very long time ago when I first started, and one of the things I think we were asked is, you know, if Title IX doesn't apply, then what? We don't just let these things go. So it was noted that maybe we should be looking at all the non-discrimination related policies while we were looking at Title IX. So as we're bringing it back this time, that is what we've done. We've brought the whole package so that we can look at it at once and get the whole thing back in place and up to date. So with that, Antoine, do you want to say any more about yourself?
Oh, no, I'm just excited to be here. Like Hal said, yeah, it was a heavy lift just to revise and update these policies. So hopefully we can move forward with those at one of the meetings to get them all up to date and approved and up to standard.
Very good. Do you want to go ahead and present each of these policies?
Yes.
And if you want to make any other remarks about the whole package,
Yeah.
And then we'll get into it one by one.
Okay. I know I guess for time's sake, for the policies 1422, 3122, and 4122, those are kind of the similar policies that has some of the same updates. We added definitions, a definitions section for like the complainant, responded, what a day is. We updated the compliance manager, naming myself, and the updated address and phone number for that. We updated the retaliation section of these policies, being more thorough of what retaliation is, and also updated the records retention section, what all we need to keep and how long we need to keep it for these investigations. For policies 1623, 3123, and 4123, just some minor changes to those was the updated for the compliance manager position, and we updated the retaliation portion of this policy, of those policies.
Real quick,
Yeah.
Antoine, just so we don't get overwhelmed, are there any questions at this point?
I don't really have a question, but I do have a comment, and that is that in a lot of these policies, we have actually named Antoine as the compliance officer. And as happy as I think we all are that Antoine is here and helpful, he may not stay forever. And so putting his name in the policy probably is not the smartest, best way to go about it. So I would just put it as compliance officer so that there's no named individual.
I think there was a question about that with and I have to talk to Wanda Lillis, our other associate counsel, that the Department of Ed wanted somebody named, and just not say compliance manager. So I'm not sure if that'd be something we have to look into to see if we can just have compliance.
I can speak
Department,
to that a little
U.S.
bit.
Department of Education. They wanted
The Title
a name.
IX regulations are specific, and no one likes it, but they're specific to naming a person. A lot of districts, you know, it's supposed to be name, title, email, all of these things. I would have to look at whether that's true for other things like bullying that aren't Title IX. But enough people have complained to me about the fact that at OSB we had told them they had to do this, that I've looked at that enough to know that it's supposed to be a name. I can't say that all the districts do that for the reasons that you're stating. You don't want to have to come back to a policy every time you have an employment staffing change. So I guess I would leave that to the board to decide how they would want to handle that, at least with regard to the Title IX policy.
Anybody have thoughts on that, other than what Joellen had to say? I agree with her. It isn't a good idea, but
I think it's possible that we could do that for Title IX because there's a specific charge to name someone and maybe then not for the others. That's a consideration.
all right, well, why don't we leave that hang for the moment?
The next set of policies are the, excuse me, the anti-harassment policies. It'd be 1662, 3362, 4362, and 5517. In those policies, the changes were we added the definition section as well. We updated the sexual harassment section to relate to the Title IX policy, because certain sexual harassment falls under Title IX, others will fall under the anti-harassment policy. So we added language for the new Title IX policy in there. We updated some additional bullet points of what would be considered sexual harassment under that section. We updated the retaliation portion as well, and of course the compliance manager position, which we just had a brief discussion on, and the retention of the records section as well in these policies. Are there any questions for those anti-harassment policies at this time? The next policy that we had was 2260, which is a non-discrimination policy as well. We added just the definition section, the compliance manager section, the records retention, and retaliation in these policies. And it's for policy 2260.01. The only update was the retaliation portion in the retaliation portion in this policy. And then policy 2266 is a new policy. That's the Title IX policy. You won't see any markups on this one because this is an entirely new policy. And when working on this, we did add the language, I believe, that the board wanted added to it when they had the last discussion on this policy, so that language was included in here to address that concern that the board had.
Yeah, if you guys remember when we brought this a long time ago, there were some suggestions on language, and when we were going to bring it to the board, those changes had been made. So we started with that version, so the Gpac committee suggestions were included and are included.
Great.
So those are all the policies. I think there's 13 total. So those edits have been made, and to go to the board members' questions about the compliance manager, I can look into that to see if it can just be compliance in the non-discrimination policies and separate for the Title IX.
I would suggest one more thing as a possibility on that. There is a policy, I think it's actually a bylaw, that allows for technical changes. Those are usually more along the lines of typos and whatnot, or maybe legal references that have changed, not really substantive. So I think there's an argument here that everything else being the same, just changing a name could be considered technical. If that's the case, it becomes very easy to make that change with staffing changes. So I can look further into whether this would qualify as that, and then we don't have to worry about it as much. So we're both going to look into things.
That sounds good. Wanda can tell us specifically what requires a name to be there. I'd like to know why that is, or what the language is that requires it. Good. Does anybody have questions at this point?
I just, as I was looking through briefly, there seems to be some inconsistency in the definition of days in that it looks like they weren't cut and pasted exactly, right? So I would just say, make sure you double check those.
Okay.
And then the definition of days also talks about excluding state holidays, but it doesn't talk about federal holidays. Are we only excluding state holidays as a day? I don't know if there's any difference between state and federal holidays. I can't think of one off the top of my head. But
No, yeah, just for that portion, just Neola, we were going off their template, so I can look in to see if state will include federal, should it be spelled out? I don't know, states are different.
you never know. We get a weird president who might have some sort of strange federal holiday that suddenly gets recognized.
Right, I'm thinking, yeah, or if Ohio has interesting feelings about, I don't know where they stand on Juneteenth, but we've had conversations about Indigenous Peoples Day, et cetera, so I feel like there's going to be that evolution there. I had a couple of items also. Are you done?
I am done.
So I noticed there, as you said, there were revisions to the retention sections, but it wasn't the case in all of them that they referenced explicitly a certain period of time for retaining materials. In some cases, they did that for 3 years. Normally, you had an A through M section and then 1 or 2 additional points below it where it said maybe you would do it according to a policy, but then it would also say 3 years. So I wanted to check that you did that selectively, intentionally, or if you wanted to go back and make that explicit throughout.
Yeah, are you talking to the last 2 points under the A through M?
Yes.
Section? Okay. I can go through and make sure they were in all the policies. So, yeah, I know some of them had just the A through M and the extra ones, and some of them just had the A through M. So I can go through and update those.
Was it Title IX by chance?
I'm sorry, there are a lot of them, which is great. I understand why you batched them, but I do not yet have my head on straight about it. The one I'm looking at is, it's
2266.
It's 2260.
60. Okay.
Yeah, and I made comments on all the policies individually, so I think I noted that a couple of different times. I would just suggest a look back and make sure that whatever you chose, you did consistently there. One other thing I had a question on was I noted the revision in the policy about ensuring that students with disabilities had access to programs, buildings, vocational programs, and that a facility constraint was not a justification to prevent them from participating. As I was reading I think it would be the complementary policy for equal employment opportunities for people with disability, I didn't see that same provision in there. And I thought it was a great addition to the one for students, and I'm curious if it makes sense to add that for those seeking employment as well.
And that's the building accessibility.
Yes, so the language I noted, I think there was one portion from 2260.01, that's the one where it had the language, and it was student focused. Then looking at 3123, I made a note pulling from the other policy that there were 2 sections of language that I thought were applicable. So So one was ensuring student access to programs and facilities does not appear to, hold on. The board will make its facilities, programs, and activities accessible to qualified individuals with disabilities separately. This was lower in the document. The board will not deny a student with disabilities access to its vocational education programs or courses due to architectural and/or equipment barriers, or because the student needs related aids or services to receive an appropriate education. That sets a beautiful bar for inclusion at the student level, and why not replicate that? So open to dialogue on it, but that jumped out at me.
Makes sense to me.
It makes sense to me too, so we'll look at why there's a difference there. The governing laws are probably a little different in its specific students, for students and adults, employees, but I think that is a great idea, and so we will see if we can do that.
And do you have something further?
Please.
And then, let's see here. Just something that I thought of. I know there are a few of these that reference that local laws also apply, and I have a little bit of personal experience on fiddling with those, helping others fiddle with those at Columbus. One relating to reproductive healthcare choices as an extension of sex as a protected class. So I know that you are in the city of Columbus. You have win-win territory, which puts you in a total of I don't know how many municipalities, but those changes. I know we also have. I think Carl, you actually worked on this with Councilmember Tyson about protecting natural hair. So in Columbus, I believe that code applies to housing, employment, and public accommodation. But I want to just lift that up here that you may not need to reference every single thing that each of the municipalities in which the district finds itself protects or extends its own non-discrimination policies to, but I would encourage you to have a roster of those things somewhere and do a look back because they are actively tweaking this area of code.
Great suggestion.
I'll pause there.
Okay. Phil, any thoughts?
Not at this time.
Questions?
Nope.
Claire Brown, do you have anything?
I don't have specific things except that, as I anticipated, I don't know that we've actually spent enough time with the package to be able to act on it now. And we don't have a quorum, it'd be a recommendation.
I agree, and I want to apologize for the delay in getting these out. They're usually out on Friday, which would have given everybody the weekend. We had a technical problem with showing changes. We couldn't get fixed Friday, and essentially we couldn't show the addition language. And this would have been very, very hard without that separation. So I apologize, that's not the normal course. But my expectation was that we would probably be looking at this over 2 months, because we did that last time with only one.
Right.
So hopefully, given that there's a month between meetings approximately, that'll give everybody time to really take a look at these.
That makes sense to me. In the meantime, are there any areas, either Antoine or Kyle, any areas that you would identify as being, noteworthy or something that you struggled with that we need to focus on?
Not at this time, Chair Brown. I wouldn't say so. I will go back and look at these recommendations that was suggested by the board to add or take away for these policies.
Great. And
I would only add that I feel it's very, very important that we get the Title IX policy in place. These regulations are likely to change again, and we may have to revisit if it changes the policy, but having nothing in place now, I think it's critical that we get something in place until that may happen, and then we bring it back due to federal regulation changes.
Are there many changes here that are, I guess, discretionary? Most of these are a matter of compliance,
Yes.
and those we don't have a lot of choice about. But are there many changes suggested other than compliance related?
Yeah, most of them are cleanup language, but as Cal stated, I think the Title IX is the one that needs to be
Right.
in effect and bring us in compliance with federal law. But all the other ones are just updating, cleaning up languages, and making it the policy, I think, cleaner and leaner with the non-discrimination policies.
I would say it's mostly compliance. I agree with Antoine, but I mean, we don't want the wrong address and contact person for any of these things. It's really important that our community, staff, students know where to go. I mean, and so that's cleanup, but I think it's also very important. So I would consider most of this compliance because we want the policies to be accurate.
One suggestion on the name, having Antoine's name there, is that if we have to do that, let's maybe do Antoine and his successor. At least it anticipates that that may not always be Antoine.
Yeah. We can do that. And we will look into whether
we need
it's
it at all.
required outside of the Title IX policy. I don't know exactly where that language is in Title IX. I'm pretty confident that it's there, and I can provide that. What I'm not sure about is whether we have to name someone in the others or just the position. But we will get an answer to that.
Okay. Anybody have anything more? Do we want to go any deeper into these now? Kelsey?
All you, Casey.
I did have another question or two. I was just curious, and this happens so often when you bring these policies to us, where you may have a full lookbook in your minds of how these have applied or how they've come to life, and I'm just sitting here thinking to myself, I wonder how these are manifesting. Like, what are the real life situations? What's the protocol if someone refuses to participate, whether they're a complainant or a respondent?
Yeah. For the complainant, the district, we can still move forward with an investigation without the complainant participating and still have a finding. If the respondent, and it's the same for the respondent as well, if we don't get any information from them, we can still move forward with an investigation and have a finding and a determination.
Thank you. And I did also notice this one sentence, and I was hoping you could kind of unpack its significance for me, that appeared in two of your policies, 2260 and 1662, where, let's say, I'm pulling up 2260 right here. At the bottom of page 4, there's the sentence that appears in both of those policies. And this section is within 2 business days of receiving the complaint, the CEO or designee will initiate a formal investigation to determine whether the complainant has been subjected to unlawful discrimination or retaliation. Then there's new language that says the principal will not conduct an investigation unless directed to do so by the CEO. Can you just explain the rationale for that, the inclusion of that in these 2 policies and only these 2 policies?
Yes, I believe on those 2 policies, if the complaint came out of the school and the formal complaint was reported to the principal and then reported to the compliance office, the compliance officer will take the lead in doing the investigation and not the principal. In some other policies, I believe the principal would be the investigator on some of those. I know especially for the bullying and some of the anti-harassment, I believe that the principal will be the investigator on those complaints. But in these complaints, non-discrimination, the compliance officer will be the lead investigator in investigating the complaint and not the principal.
Thank you.
Some of this is distinct based on what we're talking about. For instance, Title IX again versus bullying. Bullying has state law tied to it, like Title IX is federal in nature and has a whole different set of parameters about who does what than for example, a bullying investigation. So that may be part of what's in play.
Okay. As I look back, I just haven't been able to see where it points to the principal, an active role by the principal elsewhere, unless it's in the receipt of a complaint, that they're a person that you could hand your complaint to. But I haven't seen much about them investigating. So maybe we can, if you could pull those out for me offline, just so I can make sure I know where those are, that would be helpful. As I say that, I actually noticed another item on the on page 3 of 1422. There, it looks like there's a note. Staff, you might have left for yourself to make a decision on general counsel versus director of compliance.
Yeah, that was a note for myself, since it seemed deemed appropriate in consultation with the superintendent. I don't have direct access to the superintendent, so I didn't know if that language needs to be superintendent or general counsel. I know, or we've been interviewing for director of compliance. So yeah, that was a note to myself to see if what change that needs to be.
Okay, thank you.
I would probably suggest putting designee there because that could be several people depending on who she would designate. So that might be one way to handle that, and it's the way it's handled in other policies.
Good idea. Okay. Why do we plan then to get all those things looked at, plus anything that anybody else wants to bring up, and put this on the agenda for December 13th. And as far as the meeting time, did we change it to 9 o'clock?
It's been 9 o'clock.
To 9 o'clock?
Yeah.
I put it on my calendar at one time, continuing at 8:30, and those notes are still there on my calendar.
Yeah, we were trying to accommodate some folks that were having trouble getting here that early.
That's fine.
I personally like it because people get into traffic issues and there's very little room to give extra time when it's earlier than this, so.
No problem.
But we can discuss that for next year. Any changes we might want to make in day, time.
Sure. But I don't know that I'll participate in those conversations.
Understood. We're going to miss you.
So December 13th, a Wednesday at 9 o'clock in the morning. Anything else today for the good of the order? If not, we're adjourned.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.